The Lincoln Project continues to field criticism over the political and media spectrum, but now one of its own is actually turning on the organization. Founder George Conway tweeted this, quote, "The Lincoln Project should shut down absent full disclosures of its finances. As the details of the story show, there's simply too much money that hasn't been accounted for, and I fear never will be." Conway was responding to a new New York Times article reporting on the anti-Trump group. The Times claims that there's a civil war inside the Lincoln Project. They also say it's over financial arrangements and allegations against co-founder John Weaver. The allegations against Weaver were allegedly brought to the attention of the organization as early as January of 2020. So like over a year ago. The Lincoln Project's founders had big plans, and they could not be bothered, though, by things like sexual harassment and a toxic work environment and financial mismanagement. Quoting the Times story here, quote, Mr. Schmidt, Steve Schmidt, one of the three other men who founded the Lincoln Project, along with John Weaver, Reed Gallant, and Rick Wilson, had already quietly moved to set themselves up for new enterprise, drafting and filing papers to create something called TPM Media in September and October. According to records, the Times reports that its aim was to transform the global project, a super PAC, into a far more lucrative venture under their control. Let's talk more about this now and welcome in retired Marine Gunnery Sergeant Jessie Jane Duff. Also joining us, former Obama advance man Robin Byro, a retired Army Ranger, and back again Isabel Brown, Turning Point USA spokesperson. So, apparently Steve Schmidt, Jesse, thought that this was going to be a billion-dollar media empire, like a cable network, if they really played their cards right. So they can't be bothered by John Weaver's sexual harassment problems. Hubris with Steve Schmidt is the word that comes to mind, Jesse.
Yes, they really essentially preyed upon a lot of the never-Trumpers, along with Democrats, to try to push President Trump out of office, trying to destroy his capability of being reelected, or in 4 years, ensuring that his name was tarnished. But you know, most of the people that supported President Trump were not amused with their attacking a suntan or mocking Jared Kushner or Ivanka Trump, because really they didn't have anything to go off of, considering they were conservatives when you had such a record-strong economy, record low unemployment rates. But when you had John Weaver going after approximately, there have been 25 reported men that have stated that in order to get a job or be involved with the Lincoln Project, he was encouraging or enforcing or pushing for sex. And one person was as young as 14 years old. For $84 million to go to this organization, which has really no record of achievement in pushing President Trump out, that they really had no or little or no impact. And those that jumped on board, the never-Trumpers such as Bill Kristol, they have really tarnished the impression that they were ever conservative. They essentially are Democrats. And it's embarrassing to see what they have done and the record of sexual harassment and sexual misconduct.
There were other groups, Republicans for the Rule of Law, which I think Bill Kristol was closer associated with, and Republican voters against Trump. They were out there. But Robin, you think that if they were going to name their group the Lincoln Project, they could have avoided a civil war, right?
This looks horrible for them. And look, I serve on the advisory committee for a super PAC, Discourse USA. You have a fiduciary responsibility to the organization. Your private life affects the organization. So it's insane to me how crazy really all of this has gotten with the Lincoln Project. And look, I can't even fathom how they raised that much money. I don't know people within my party who really supported them, so much less Republicans. It blows my mind, John.
Yeah, a lot of people in Hollywood support him. We won't go through the list of names here. But Isabel, I think, the lesson here is that when you're going to have a group, any kind of super PAC, when they are just against something and not really for anything. These were all supposedly conservatives, but they didn't stand for conservative principles or ideals. They really just hated Donald Trump, and all their ads were snarky. It was mudslinging at its worst. And what did people think was going to happen when people inside the group are only concerned about their own success, their own wealth? Generational wealth was the term that Steve Schmidt used to toss around.
Yeah, John, I think that's exactly true. When you don't have something that is your solid foundation of what you believe in, it's very easy to be cast astray in various different directions away from your original intention. I don't agree with George Conway on much, but I do agree that this organization has truly lost all credibility at this point in time and likely should be shut down. It's completely disgraceful that individuals who claimed to be upholding integrity by pointing the finger at someone who they claimed not to have very much integrity, former President Donald Trump, are now being accused of such heinous acts and even have proven to be money laundering tens of millions of dollars to themselves to set their own organization and their own individual interests up for success. It is just incredibly disappointing to see and does not at all speak for the conservative interest of the American people.
Let's also talk about, continue our conversation about New York Governor Andrew Cuomo now. The Attorney General there, Tish James, is spearheading the investigation into Governor Cuomo's sexual harassment complaints and the nursing home scandal. Also, James announcing that JOON Kim and Ann Clark will take the reins and lead the investigation. Here's a little bit more about them. Kim is a former acting U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York. He also closed out the probe of Mayor Bill de Blasio's campaign finance scandal. And Ann Clark is a veteran employment discrimination lawyer here. Is anyone else surprised, though, that this sexual harassment, I guess we're not surprised, but Jesse Jane, this is how it works. You know, you have what I would think in terms of the people who lost loved ones would say the nursing home scandal is much bigger, carries much more weight to it, but it's the sexual harassment scandal that gets all the attention, Jesse.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that the Democrats didn't want to hear about the problems that were going on with the nursing homes. We all know that people like Janice Dean, who lost both of her in-laws to the nursing home scandal, have been screaming out loud for basically the last 9 or 10 months. But when you finally get women to come forward on sexual harassment, that is what now the media wants to cover. I'm sorry, you know, as much as disgraceful as his behavior has been, why has it taken so long for Albany, New York to finally come out and say maybe we need to consider articles of impeachment, which is very difficult in New York State. But it was the sexual harassment that pushed this over the edge, when meanwhile, how many loved ones died? Thousands upon thousands of people lost their loved ones in that nursing home scandal.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically kind of what you're left with in terms of a conclusion when it comes to most of the media, Robin, that they care more about the accusations of these 4 women than the deaths of thousands of senior citizens.
I mean, that goes back so long, though, because it's just crazy, right? I mean, look at even what happened with Bill Clinton. But I'm very concerned about the nursing home scandal. I mean, I gave Judge Kavanaugh the benefit of a doubt and said, look, everyone's entitled to the presumption of innocence. But the nursing home scandal, I don't know any way he can possibly get around that. I'm all for giving everyone their fair shake, but I mean, not when it comes to that. Not when it comes to that.
Well, in terms of the Bill Clinton thing, Robin, many of us were just concerned by the fact that he lied under oath, not about some of the other, you know, ancillary stuff going on with that impeachment. But I digress. You know, Isabel, we also look at this in other places, too. Michigan prosecutor, at least one Michigan prosecutor now says there could be criminal charges coming for Governor Gretchen Whitmer over her handling of the pandemic. The prosecutor warns, though, that the nursing home directives could lead to these charges. This was reported by the Daily Wire and others. So do you think, you know, what's happening to Cuomo could actually happen to Gretchen Whitmer? Not the sexual harassment allegations, but there does seem to be more awareness about some of these directives from the governors.
I think many more stories are going to come out here in the next few weeks and months, John, about poor handling of the COVID-19 pandemic, particularly when it came to wanting to protect vulnerable populations like the elderly and those who were living in nursing homes. I don't believe that New York or Michigan are alone in making those decisions. In fact, governors were likely communicating with each other very frequently throughout the early months of this pandemic on how things should be handled. And it's very optimistic for me to see that Michigan is at least trying to bring some justice to those who have lost their loved ones over extreme mismanagement of this pandemic. And I'm only hopeful that other governors are going to be held to the same standard and that justice will be brought to the families.
Yeah, Jesse, you know, in many ways, it looks like Governor Cuomo is shielding a lot of Democrats from their own problems. But, you know, we're going to learn more about what happened in New York. And if it appears to be the case, same thing happened in Michigan. What do you think is going to happen to Governor Whitmer?
You know, a lot of the problems that are going on in Michigan are protected by HIPAA laws. And what I've read about is that the attorney general has told the loved ones to get to the nursing homes and find out the conditions in which their loved ones had died, the circumstances, and expose them and put them into lawsuits. Governor Whitmer is going to be on the edge when you get the families to stand up and speak out. Otherwise, if you're expecting the government, particularly those that are in the Democratic Party in rule, it seems like the party of rule manages to cover up a lot of their own messes, as we've seen with Governor Cuomo. But at some point, when the families are screaming loud enough, you can't ignore the attention that they draw to this.
Robin, do you feel like this is a legitimate investigation into Whitmer, or do you feel like Republicans are being opportunistic here, trying to replicate the Andrew Cuomo situation?
It's difficult to say, John, because we are in an era of political warfare. But I always want to say, investigate away. Because transparency, when it comes to things like this, is key. Americans need to know the answers. Michiganders need to know the answers. So investigate. Let's get some transparency.
Transparency, something we can all agree on. Transparency. Sunlight is the best disinfectant. Jesse, Robin, Isabel, great to see you all. We'll talk soon.
Hi, Emma Reckenberg here. If you like this video, there's a whole lot more to see on Newsmax TV. You can watch for free right here on our YouTube live stream and be the first one here each time our experts break down real news. Just hit that subscribe button, ring the bell icon, and stay with us on America's fastest growing cable news channel, Newsmax TV.